So there's talk of Anthony Joshua possibly not having his trainer, Rob Mccracken, in his corner for the Tyson Fury fight. There's been mention of the likes of Vladimir Klitschko and Floyd Mayweather coming into AJ's camp to help him out. And I'm assuming that's because, or at least partially because, of the potential that Rob Mccracken could be absent. The reason, by the way, is because you've got the Tokyo Olympics, which is still not certain to go ahead. I read a news article just yesterday saying that the Tokyo Olympics could still be cancelled this year. But assuming it goes ahead, Rob Mccracken, of course, trains the national team. He's the head coach for the national boxing team in the UK. And therefore, he would be in Tokyo. He's got a conflict there. It all depends on how AJ has been training over the past few fights anyway. Rob Mccracken is officially the head coach, but how much one-to-one work has he really been doing with AJ? Has he just been overseeing everything? Or is he still the main guy on a day-to-day basis? Because they did have this Fernandez guy come in. I forget his first name. Is it Angel Fernandez? I think it might be. But I'm just going to call him Fernandez. They had this Fernandez guy come in for the Ruiz rematch. And I think he'd worked and he'd done a few bits and pieces with AJ for quite some time before that. If Fernandez, for this fight, is given the position as head coach, and if Fernandez has been working with AJ on a day-to-day basis very closely, perhaps more so than Rob Mccracken, for the past couple fights, then it's really not going to make much of a difference, other than maybe psychologically. Because having that overseer, in some ways almost like a father figure, an uncle, a reassuring presence who's been there, seen it and done it, and he's overseen AJ's development over the years. You know, that might be a psychological safety blanket for Anthony Joshua, having Rob Mccracken there. But in terms of practical advice, tactics, and so on, I don't know whether Rob Mccracken, I'm not saying he isn't, I'm just saying I don't know whether Rob Mccracken is the main guy for all that kind of stuff at this point, and whether he has been for the past few fights. I don't know whether it's him or whether it's actually this Fernandez individual. Now, from what I've seen of this Fernandez, he seems to know what he's talking about. I like the stuff he says about boxing more so than what Rob Mccracken says. You know, I watched Rob Mccracken when he was a professional fighter, and I can see the Mccracken DNA in Anthony Joshua in his style. Rob Mccracken was a very tall, rangy, upright, very, very upright, traditional British/European style boxer. And so if you've got that guy training Anthony Joshua, inevitably you're going to end up with a lot of his style in AJ. Whereas with Fernandez, he seems to be, I don't want to say more new school, but new school from a British perspective anyway. Because in America, they were fighting in a more modern style, if you want to call it that, long before most boxers were in Britain and long before most coaches in Britain were teaching that kind of thing. So Fernandez, as far as I can tell, is more a fan of people being relaxed, loose, you know, not constantly having their hands up all the time, and just what I would call more advanced boxing techniques than the way Rob Mccracken used to fight, certainly. So if Fernandez is the main guy, it shouldn't be much of an issue against Tyson Fury. Remember the fact that Anthony Joshua has been in the ring with Tyson Fury before. I've always got the impression that this is a fight Anthony Joshua really, really fancies. When he got in the ring against Tyson Fury many years ago for a sparring session, Fury was vastly more experienced than AJ at that point. Vastly more experienced. Let's not forget that. And Fury's own words were, Anthony Joshua beat me up in sparring. That was his own words. He was ranting and raving about AJ, saying how good he was, saying how he's one to watch. Okay, that interview can still be listened to on YouTube, I'm sure. So Anthony Joshua will certainly take that experience. I'm not going to say he's buying too much into the sparring, but he'll take that experience. And I think he will gain confidence from it in terms of stepping in the ring with Tyson Fury again. It's not like he's completely going into the unknown. He has some knowledge of what to expect, right? Some experience. So I think for this particular fight, it's not ideal that Rob Mccracken is not there in some capacity if that happens. But I wouldn't be as concerned as maybe if he was going into a fight against somebody very dangerous who he'd never been in the ring with before. Maybe somebody who was a much bigger puncher than Tyson Fury. So as far as Vladimir Klitschko and Floyd Mayweather's involvement, from what I've read, it doesn't seem that serious. I think it's the internet making a bigger deal out of it than it actually is. Some of these websites making a bigger deal of it than it actually is. It seems as though they've casually suggested that they might pop in to give AJ some pointers, and AJ said, oh yeah, they're always welcome. It doesn't seem to be anything particularly formal. I'm not expecting to see Floyd Mayweather in Anthony Joshua's corner on fight night or Vladimir Klitschko. Can't rule it out, of course. Boxing is a very bizarre sport at times, and bizarre things happen. Okay, I would never have expected to see David Haye managing Derek Chisora, for example. So anything's possible, I guess. But from what I've read, the impression I get is that we're not going to see Vladimir Klitschko and Floyd Mayweather flying over to be in AJ's camp, taking him on the pads every day. You know, we're unlikely to see that. If that did happen, I would actually be concerned, to be honest, because then there is the potential for Anthony Joshua being confused. You know, the old saying, too many cooks can spoil the broth. When you've got a Vladimir Klitschko who has a very different style to a Floyd Mayweather, and then you've got Fernandez, who may be the head coach, I don't know. Whose voice is Anthony Joshua going to listen to? What if they're all telling him conflicting information, conflicting strategies? See, this isn't good. Will Floyd Mayweather, in that scenario, be humble enough, self-aware enough, respectful enough to allow Fernandez to do his thing and take the lead, and Mayweather only chip in here and there? Or will Mayweather not have any respect for Fernandez, or not much respect for him, and act like, I know more than this guy, don't listen to him, and constantly be talking over him, constantly be saying, no, do it this way, disregard what he just told you, and so on? You see, this is the danger. And with Vladimir Klitschko, you know, perhaps a similar kind of situation, although you'd expect it less from somebody like him. You never know, right? Again, this is all hypothetical, but what I'm expecting is that you're not going to see either Vladimir Klitschko or Floyd Mayweather spend any serious time in the gym with Anthony Joshua in the lead up to this Tyson Fury fight. Could be wrong, but I'm not expecting that to happen. I'm expecting if Rob Mccracken can't be in his corner, then it's going to be Fernandez or one of these other guys who's been associated with the Anthony Joshua camp for a long time. Somebody who AJ is at least somewhat familiar with. So that's my take on it. And as far as if AJ could work with a Vladimir Klitschko or work with a Floyd Mayweather moving forward, I don't think it hurts him to take some advice from Floyd Mayweather on certain things. I know that they're very cool with each other and what have you. It certainly wouldn't hurt, but Mayweather doesn't have a track record, a proven track record as a trainer. He was a great fighter, of course, but great fighters don't always make great trainers. He doesn't have a proven track record as a trainer, particularly at heavyweight. And training heavyweights is a whole different ballgame to training welterweights, because heavyweights simply can't do what welterweights do. Okay, they can't move like that. They can't throw as many punches in most instances, and they're just generally not as dexterous, not as skillful as smaller guys. And you have to take that into account when you're training a heavyweight. You have to understand what heavyweights can and can't do. You also have to understand that the stakes are higher at heavyweight. In most welterweight fights, yeah, a fight can be over with one punch, but generally speaking, at the elite level, it's quite rare to see one punch knockouts. Whereas in heavyweight boxing at the elite level, one punch knockouts are far more common. And if not one punch knockouts, fights in which one punch completely changes the trajectory of the fight, as in the first AJ Ruiz fight. It all changed off one punch. So this is the way heavyweight boxing can be dramatically different from boxing in the welterweight division and many other divisions. And when you're training these guys, this is what you have to take into account. Peter Fury has talked about this over the years. It's very different training heavyweights. Even the mindset of a heavyweight often has to be different than the mindset of a welterweight. Maybe I'll talk about that in a separate video. But yeah, with Mayweather, maybe you can learn a few things from him. But other than that, I'm not so sure. With Vladimir Klitschko, I think he could learn a lot more. Not to say that AJ needs to fight just like Klitschko, but Klitschko's going to have a lot of practical experience fighting different styles at heavyweight. You know, he can show AJ certain training techniques, maybe certain strength and conditioning techniques, things that have helped him over the years. Because remember, Vladimir Klitschko also had a stamina problem. Early on in his career, he gassed out against Ross Purity. He gassed out against Lamont Brewster. So he knows what it feels like to be in AJ's position when he fought Andy Ruiz, for example. He's been there. He knows what it feels like to be in the position AJ was in when he fought AJ, right? AJ was tired. AJ was hurt. Klitschko's been there. Okay, so this is a guy who could offer him a lot of practical advice, I think. Would it work out as him being AJ's main coach? I don't think so, because there are differences there. And I wouldn't want to see AJ turn into a Klitschko clone. I think he's got more to offer than that. Klitschko was a great fighter, but I just think AJ's got more dimensions to his game than Klitschko. And I'd like to see those dimensions explored and made the most of. But yeah, moving forward, if Klitschko or Mayweather were to have involvement in AJ's career, training him and so on, I think Klitschko would probably offer more practical advice than Floyd Mayweather. You know, the danger with Mayweather is it all becomes about him. And certainly if he's in the gym and there's this Fernandez guy, he's looking at him like, how much money have you made? How many world titles have you won? You know, all the kind of stuff Mayweather says. Is he really going to defer to that guy and say, okay, you're head coach, I'll listen to you? Or I'll let you take the lead and just chip in here and there and be respectful? I mean, maybe he can do that. I don't know, but based upon what we've seen of Mayweather over the years, I think there's a danger there that his ego could come into play in a major way if he was a serious fixture within the AJ training team. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this story. Anthony Joshua potentially training with the likes of Vladimir Klitschko and Floyd Mayweather and not having Rob Mccracken in his corner for this Tyson Fury fight. It's not ideal. But, you know, I don't really think there are many surprises in store for Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury. I think he really knows what to expect. I think we all know what to expect. What's Tyson Fury going to do against AJ that we haven't seen before now? He's shown us, at least I think he's shown us, his entire repertoire at this point. He can box on the front foot and be aggressive like he was in a Wilder rematch. He can box on the back foot, of course. We've seen that. He can box in the middle of the ring. He fights on the inside, on the outside. You know, his counterpunching Tyson Fury is not amazing. Maybe that's something he can show us. Because he counters okay when he's got a short pressure fighter coming at him like a Derek Chisora. He can counter with uppercuts and stuff like that. But generally speaking, when it comes to long-range boxing, he's not a big counterpuncher at all, Tyson Fury. We didn't see a great deal of counterpunching against Vladimir Klitschko. We didn't see a great deal of counterpunching even in the Wilder fight at long range. It was more leading off. But yeah, I think we've seen the whole repertoire of Tyson Fury at this point. And therefore, Anthony Joshua's seen the whole repertoire. Right? So I think AJ has a good idea of what to expect. If one thing is not working for Tyson Fury, maybe he'll switch it up. And perhaps AJ will have to do the same. Now, AJ doesn't have the track record, excuse me, of successfully switching it up mid-fight the way Tyson Fury does. But that doesn't mean he can't do it. There's a first time for everything. Tyson Fury, of course, switched it up mid-fight against Steve Cunningham. Did the same against Otto Wallen. He got dropped by Cunningham, switched it up. Decided to fight aggressive after that. And a similar situation against Otto Wallen. Anthony Joshua has switched his style from one fight to the next, from the first Ruiz fight to the second, but he hasn't done it mid-fight. But I think the experience he gained from that Ruiz situation, both fights, the weight he's lost, I think he will be able to switch it up mid-fight if he has to. Some people are still skeptical about Anthony Joshua's stamina, and I get that. They say that he didn't actually throw that many punches in the Ruiz rematch, and he didn't have that many punches thrown at him. He wasn't under that much pressure. You know, it's not like Demetrius Andrade when he fought Liam Williams last weekend, where Williams was on him like a harbor shark, closing down the distance constantly, not giving him any room to breathe. With Ruiz, it wasn't like that. He was so heavy, and he has never had great foot speed anyway. Anthony Joshua actually had quite a lot of room to maneuver. Therefore, how great can Anthony Joshua's stamina really be? We still haven't seen him go 12 rounds at a good pace yet. And I definitely take that into account. But what I will say is, even though AJ didn't have to throw that many shots or avoid that many shots in the Ruiz rematch, he was under tremendous psychological pressure, tremendous emotional, mental pressure. And that can be very draining. That can deplete your stamina and your energy. And I think we saw that in the mid-rounds against Andy Ruiz, where it did appear that Anthony Joshua was maybe getting tired, fatigued, the constant moving along with the mental pressure of having to focus so much, knowing that this guy could take him out. If he manages to pin AJ down, it happened the first time. Battling with the demons from the first fight and all this kind of stuff. This is very draining. And he made it through the rough patch in the middle of the fight. And by the 12th round, he was bouncing around the ring again. So I think that situation there will help to strengthen Anthony Joshua moving forward. And I think that he's still not over the Andy Ruiz fight, the first fight, from what I saw in the Kubrat Pulev bout, but it's a process. And perhaps he'll be sufficiently over it to, if not beat Tyson Fury, then at least give his best, because that's all you can do in this world, right? Is give your best in any situation. And perhaps Anthony Joshua will be able to do that against Fury. Give his absolute best, be as confident as he can possibly be. And as I say, the stamina situation, I don't think he's ever going to have amazing stamina, but I am convinced that his stamina has significantly improved since he dropped the weight, since he stopped focusing on resistance training, weightlifting, and so on, and is more focused on actual boxing, sparring, and all that kind of thing. I think inevitably his stamina will be better. And the experience of going 12 rounds moving about the way he did is going to stand him in good stead, you know, because that wasn't like the Parker fight. He was under far more pressure, mental pressure. And I think he actually did throw more punches. I haven't looked at the CompuBox, but I think he threw more proper punches, not just jabs, but, you know, proper shots against Andy Ruiz than he did against Joseph Parker. That's my perception anyway, off the top of my head. So, Yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about all I've discussed in this video. I'm out. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.